Welcome to today's episode of the Normalized Surrogacy podcast by Surrogacy Mentor. I'm your host, Carrie Flamer Powell, experienced gestational surrogate, surrogacy agency founder, and owner of Surrogacy Mentor and Modern Parent Mentor. Today, I am joined by our very special guest, Dr. Guy Ringler of California Fertility Partners. Welcome, Dr. Ringler.
Oh, welcome. Nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Always nice to chat with you. It's been too long, so I'm glad that we're able to catch up with you today. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics that's near and dear to my heart, which is LGBT family building. And that's something that is also near and dear to your heart, I know, and I can't wait to talk about all the things. So before we jump into that, I do want to share a little bit of information about Dr. Ringler. Dr. Guy Ringler is board certified in obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility. He's a proud partner with California Fertility Partners. Dr. Ringler is committed to patient education and has served on the board of the American Fertility Association, the Advisory Council of Men Having Babies, and the clinical faculty of the UCLA School of Medicine. He received a Family Building Award by the American Fertility Association and has been named a super doctor by Los Angeles Magazine. Dr. Ringler has established a loyal patient following in Southern California and has developed an international reputation for expertise in reproductive medicine, especially surrogacy and third-party reproduction. Dr. Ringler's patients travel from Europe, Asia, Australia, and Africa for his medical care. Dr. Ringler was one of the world's first physicians to help gay men have babies through egg donation and surrogacy. He is committed to helping all members of the LGBTQ community fulfill their dreams of having children and building families. Well, if that isn't just a perfect lead-in for our conversation, I don't know what is. So you've been doing this a long time, and I don't think I knew that you were the first or one of the first doctors to ever help gay men have children through surrogacy.
Well, it was an exciting time. This was over 25 years ago, and I'll always remember my very first patient because a clinical psychologist in Santa Monica called me and said, "Guy, would you be willing to help this very nice gay couple from Santa Monica?" Mm-hmm. And so I had a call with them, and they had been together for a while, and they really wanted a child together, and they wanted their child, of course, to be an expression of their love for each other. So right. Their plan was for one of the guys to be the sperm provider, and his partner's sister would be the egg donor. Mm-hmm. And that way the genetics of the child would reflect their genetics. And the neighbor down the street was going to be their surrogate. So they had it all planned out. It was a nice little group. But at that time, gay family building was very, very new. It really hadn't been done much. And there were, mixed feelings in the reproductive medical community. Even should we be helping gay people have kids? Mm-hmm. It was controversial. And so I was new in my practice. A couple years earlier, I had finished my training at the University of Pennsylvania. So I called my mentor at the hospital, the University of Pennsylvania, and I said, I have this really interesting case. I'd like to help, but is this okay to do? Am I going to be shut out of the reproductive medical community if I do this? And his response was, "Let me think about it overnight, and I'll call you back tomorrow." Uh-huh. So I thought, this is serious.
Yeah.
He called me back the next day, and he said, "Guy, treat your patient." So I talked to my partners, we were all fine. And so I helped this couple. And, so the sister the donor came in for a consult. She was 41, and we all know how important age is for the woman producing the eggs. And so I said, okay, we talked about the potential risk of not having a normal egg, normal embryo. Mm-hmm. But they were very committed to this process. So we did IVF using the sister and did the embryo transfer into their surrogate neighbor. They got pregnant on the first transfer, and the daughter's now a college graduate. They've moved from Santa Monica to the East Coast, and literally 6 months ago, they sent me an email update with a photograph of their daughter together. So
Oh my
So that was
gosh.
my very first patient, and it really started, you know, opened our eyes to the needs out there and the just as a gay man, I'm very committed to helping men fulfill their dreams of having children because, when I was younger, on realizing dealing with my sexuality, my biggest hurt really was the thought that, gee, I can't have kids.
Right.
And so my goal is to never let young gay men have to feel that. And fortunately, today, with the changes in society and changes in reproductive medicine, young gay men can grow up knowing that, they can get married, they can have children, and they can
Right.
fulfill all those dreams.
I am so impressed by that. I love that. And I I don't think it's an understatement to say that that first patient changed the trajectory of a huge part of your clientele, right? Like you're known as
Well, it really did because at that time there were some, smart, motivated gay men that were pursuing, family building, and they were, doors were not open to them, so they were
right,
knocking on doors, trying to find people, professionals willing to help them.
yeah,
And the surrogacy agencies that were out there really weren't open to this concept. A couple were, and so they started to see patients who from around the world who were seeking out this type of treatment. And really, what we're doing is we were combining everything that we had learned in reproductive medicine, egg donor, IVF, surrogacy, to help men have babies. It made perfect sense. You know, you
yeah,
know, gay men have an obstacle to getting pregnant. They're missing some anatomy. And
right.
so we can utilize everything that we've learned from egg donation, everything we've learned from surrogacy to help men have their own biological children. And
Right.
since that time, of course, the resources have become much more available. You
Mhm.
know,
Right.
all surrogacy agencies today, of course, open their arms to helping gay men have children. Same with egg donor agencies, and so there are many more resources. So it's men don't have to travel across the world necessarily to
Right.
start their family.
Right. And I think, it's incredible to think that, gay marriage in our country is not even a decade old. And, in one way, it seems like helping gay men and women have their families has been happening for a long time, but really it hasn't. I mean, I was married to a woman for 18 years, but our marriage was only legal for a few of those years. And so you think about like it seems like we've been forming families as gay men and women for a long time, but really we're only talking about the last couple of decades where it's become commonplace. And as you said, young gay people now can grow up thinking automatically a family is an option, whereas for you and I, that was never a given. And so we're sort of at this incredible time in history where thankfully gay and lesbians are not instantly thinking, wow, having a family is out for me if I come out of the closet. So I love that.
Absolutely. So they can, fortunately, sometimes I think, oh, I live in a bubble. I live in Los
Mhm.
Angeles where,
Yeah,
gay, straight, it doesn't really matter. Everyone, but it's, of course, not that way everywhere and definitely not, around the world. But, we live in this time and place where, um, you know, every individual can fulfill their dreams, right? Of
absolutely.
something that's so natural, biological that, and so it's so rewarding to help people, of all sexual identities have build families if that's what's really important to them.
Right.
And I think for individuals going through surrogacy, especially gay men, it's not a simple process
Right.
in that it takes a commitment, both personally, financially, to to,
Mhm.
to make this happen. So it the individuals who pursue it are really committed. It's really important to them. And that's why they make such great parents, because they work so hard to make this happen, I think.
That's right. Yes, I've said that about gay parents in general. Like, it does not happen accidentally that gay and lesbians and transgender people become parents. It is very intentional and planned, and a lot of times saved for, and financially planned for. So yes, I do believe there is a lot of truth to that. So we've talked about sort of the history of LGBT family formation. How do you feel like, what are some of the main areas where you feel like things have evolved? Obviously, societal acceptance, but has any of the technology, or you mentioned that your first patient worked with their sister. Do you feel like anything has changed in modern day LGBT family building from the old days?
Well, I think first is just the availability of resources. So they used their sister because it was important to them. But at that time, there were not as many egg donor agencies, and the egg donor agencies hadn't reached out to the LGBTQ community. Right. And so today you can find whatever you're looking for in terms of an egg donor, and you have assistance, from many different agencies. So you have many different sources of egg donors, many different sources of surrogates. And I think, in addition, more surrogate candidates are open to the possibility of having a baby for a gay couple, because societal acceptance has increased through storytelling. Yes. Sharing these stories about family building is so important. Because people, I'm surprised when people come from small towns or from other parts of the world, and they didn't know this was possible, right. Until somebody told them. And it was like, for us, we live this. Yeah. So yes. It's a little surprising that everyone doesn't know, but everyone doesn't know what treatments are possible. Right. I'll never forget, I helped this couple from a small town in Norway about 5 or 6 years ago, and she had undergone a hysterectomy at an early age. Mm-hmm. And so she was in the checkout line in the grocery store, and there was an Us Weekly cover story on Elton John and David Furnish having a baby through surrogacy. And she saw that, and a light bulb went off. Like, oh my God, if they can have a baby through surrogacy, maybe I can too. Right. So she called me, and she now has a 5-year-old son.
That's amazing.
So the sharing stories is very powerful.
It is.
Another fun story is a woman from a small town in the Midwest was in the grocery store, and she was very pregnant, and the checkout person was asking about the pregnancy, and she says, "Oh yeah, I'm having a baby for these 2 gay men," and the woman was shocked. She had never heard of that before, and she proceeded to tell her the whole story, and the woman said, "Gee, maybe I could do that too someday." So these surrogates are amazing individuals in many ways, but they become little ambassadors for family building by sharing their stories with people. Right. When you think about it, their kids grow up in a home where their mom's carrying a baby for 2 gay men. Mm-hmm. So the kids grow up learning this acceptance and that this is natural.
Yes. Yes, I know. My daughter was 2 when I started my surrogacy journey, and almost 4 by the time he was born. And I remember someone asked her, like, what does your mom do for a living? And she said, oh, my mom goes into a building and has babies for other people.
Perfect.
In her mind, that's just what happens. You have babies for other people. And yes. I often say it's such a gift as part of the surrogacy experience as a surrogate. One of the biggest gifts is showing your children how other families can be formed and how you can impact other people's lives in an amazing way. And it's something I think can't be understated, honestly. It's such a huge piece of it.
Absolutely. But getting back to your original question about what has changed, I think the technology, of course, has improved, in the last 25 years. Pregnancy rates are higher than ever. Mm-hmm. And that's due to several factors. Ovarian stimulation protocols have changed a little bit. The IVF laboratory conditions have improved today. So today, the laboratory environment has a great ability to culture embryos for 6 days to the blastocyst stage. Today, we're able to do genetic testing on those embryos, where the embryologist removes 3 to 6 cells from the outer layer of the embryo. The embryos are rapidly frozen. And the genetic testing, referred to as PGTA, tells us whether or not that embryo has the correct number of chromosomes. And this is optional when you use a young egg donor. For older women, it's extremely beneficial because there's a direct correlation between age and the percent of those embryos that are normal versus abnormal. But even in egg donor cycles where we have a large number of embryos, we find it helpful in determining which embryos are the best to transfer, which embryos have the highest chance of initiating a pregnancy. And as a result of that information, most of the time today we transfer a single embryo. 10 years ago, we were doing double embryo transfers on most patients because we didn't know if it was normal or not. So you would put back 2 to increase the chance of one taking. Well, as a result, we were producing a lot of twins, which can be wonderful, but twin pregnancy is a high-risk pregnancy. So today, by identifying whether or not the embryo is normal or abnormal and transferring a single embryo, we are able to achieve a very high pregnancy rate and minimize the risk of a high-risk twin pregnancy.
Right.
So
that's a huge benefit for sure of modern technology, of getting to the point where it's now the standard. I would even say 5 years ago, it wasn't the standard to do a single embryo transfer, right?
Yeah, because everyone wants to maximize the chance of pregnancy, maximize the chance of success, but it's a balance. You want to have a high pregnancy rate, but minimize the risk to everyone involved. Right. And, the main risk of a twin pregnancy is early delivery. And that puts the babies at increased risk. And twin pregnancy for the surrogate puts her at increased risk as well. Increased risk for miscarriage, increased risk of diabetes in pregnancy, hypertension in pregnancy. So we want to be successful, but we want it to be safe for everyone. Right. In the process.
Absolutely. It's the number one priority, right? Safety of surrogate and baby, healthy surrogate. That's
absolutely
the ultimate goal. Yeah. So what are some common roadblocks from your perspective for the LGBT community today in family building?
I have to say one of the big one is really the cost of the process. It's not inexpensive. People ask, well, how much is it? And it's somewhere between the, very expensive car or a small house in the Midwest. You have to plan for it. It's a couple $100,000. We keep trying to keep the cost down, but like everything else in life, prices keep going up. And modern medicine technology is costly. So for individuals who don't have the funds but really want a family, they can either take out financing for it. I've had parents pay for it because they really want their children to become parents. Grandparents have helped. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Men Having Babies, which is a wonderful organization, and they have this scholarship program for individuals who are really committed to having a family but don't have the resources based upon the work that they do. They can apply for an award to be given a discount on some of the costs. So with some creative planning, it can be possible. And of course, like my very first patient, if you use a friend or a relative as an egg donor, that can save some costs. Finding that individual is not always easy. The same for the surrogate, to find the perfect friend to be a surrogate or a family member, is not an easy task.
Right. Yeah, it can be difficult for sure. And to clarify, when you say like a couple $100,000, you're talking about gestational surrogacy with an egg donor, correct?
Correct. Yeah. When I explain the cost to my patients, I explain it as three cost centers. There's the IVF clinic, there's the egg donor agency and related costs, and surrogate agency related costs. If you add that all up today, it's somewhere between 160 and 200 in that range.
Right.
So,
and then if we're also talking about, let's say, lesbian couple who want to try and have a child, they maybe could do some lesser expensive procedures like IUI, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. For a lesbian couple, the very first thing is just a natural cycle IUI. We don't need to do IVF. And so that's, the treatment per cycle is several $100s,
Right.
versus tens of thousands of dollars.
Right. So it can just depend.
Unless we're doing reciprocal IVFs with lesbian couples. One woman may want to provide the eggs but not carry the pregnancy and have her partner carry the pregnancy. But still, because we're not utilizing egg donation, we're not utilizing surrogacy, the costs are much lower.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing reciprocal IVF happen a lot more lately. Like on social media, I'm seeing more couples come out and say they're doing reciprocal IVF. And I just saw an article, I can't remember where they were, but they were the first ones in their country to do, I think it was in the UK, a lesbian couple, each carrying the other's embryo at the same time. So they both carried and delivered at the same time, but it was each other's genetic baby. So I thought that was kind of amazing.
It's wonderful. Yeah, so there's lots of different treatment options. Trying to think what other obstacles might be in the way. We always, talk about how successful it is, how high the pregnancy rates are, but it's not always easy. You expect when you take a genetically tested, normal, healthy embryo from an egg donor, putting into the surrogate who provides this perfect environment, that it has to work, right? Well, it's not 100%, and pregnancy rates are high. They're, near 80%. But it's not 100%. But occasionally there's cases where it doesn't work the first time, maybe the second time, or there's a miscarriage. And this is because, we still don't have the perfect in vitro test on an embryo to tell us which embryo is capable of resulting in a live birth. The genetic testing tells us a lot, but it doesn't tell us everything. And so, I don't know if we'll ever get to 100%. We keep trying, but,
sure.
And we're continuing to learn more about the uterine environment, what's necessary for implantation, how much progesterone, the timing of progesterone start. There's a newer test called the endometrial receptivity assay that looks specifically at genes that are turned on in the middle window of implantation. So reproductive medicine keeps trying to further define the science of conception so we can, maximize success rates, but we're not quite there yet.
Right. Yeah. So in your opinion, what do you think we can do as a surrogacy, egg donation, fertility community to improve the experience of LGBT family building today?
Well, there's always a demand for more surrogates. There's over the last 5 years, wouldn't you say there's just been an increased demand?
Yes, since COVID for sure.
It used to be that you could find a surrogate within 1 to 3 months, a match is made, and then you can continue on. Today, some agencies are quoting, 12 to 18 months to be matched with a surrogate because of the increased demand. And the pandemic decreased the supply of surrogates a little bit, but I think we've recovered from that. I think there's just huge demand today. So any surrogates, potential surrogates out there who's listening to this, you will, your services are in great demand.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a big piece of that is, as you mentioned earlier, sharing stories, because I'm still seeing on this side a surprising number of surrogate applications come through where the surrogate, either the surrogate herself or her partner or her immediate family are not supportive of her caring for an LGBT person. And I'm still surprised in 2024 that we're seeing that as often as we are. And so, while of course everyone is, has the right to their own beliefs and feelings of who they carry for, I do think that sharing stories and helping people personalize these family building stories helps to open people's minds and hopefully provide more available surrogates for LGBT people.
Absolutely. Because knowledge, opens the door to acceptance, right? Everyone needs to learn that, what happy households we're creating through LGBTQ family building, in part because so much commitment and desire went into planning this pregnancy. It didn't just happen.
Right.
It took a lot of effort, time, energy, expense to make it happen.
Right. And that's a part of it. And the other part of it is just human nature to want to have children in a lot of cases. Most people, whether you're gay, straight, somewhere in between, you have a desire to have a family. And that is universal. That doesn't have barriers of sexuality or anything. It's a matter of you want to be a parent, you want to show love to a child, you want to grow a family and have that experience in your life. And the fact that you're gay just happens to be a side note, right?
Right. Yeah, it just makes it a little more challenging, perhaps, on how you're going to get there.
Right.
But fortunately, you can get there today. There are, in the very beginning, of course, IVF clinics were not open to the concept, and today everyone, I'd say most clinics today, are open to the LGBTQ community with open arms. Wouldn't you say? It's just changed so much.
I've not heard of any clinics that aren't. And that actually brings up a question that I think maybe a lot of listeners have is today in your practice, what percentage do you see of heterosexual versus LGBTQ plus individuals?
It's probably 25 to 30% LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
So, we treat, everyone, and, the demand for fertility care is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's important for LGBTQ individuals to go to a clinic where they feel warmly accepted by everyone, not just the physicians, but the receptionist, the people answering the phone. And so, I'm very proud to say that my staff has always been very accepting and welcoming of our patients. And it's, you want to be treated in an environment where you feel accepted, welcome, and cared for, without issue. There can't be an issue there. And that's one thing I've heard from patients tell me that's not universal. And so for prospective patients out there, and surrogates, you want to work with a group of professionals where you feel accepted without issue.
Yes, I'd say accepted and represented, and feeling like, there are many ways to form a family and that's representative in the care providers that you're choosing. And I think that you're a shining example of that as someone who's out and has been literally pioneering LGBT family building for the last 2.5 decades. It's amazing what you've been doing.
Oh, thank you. I feel passionate about it.
Yeah, I can tell. It's amazing. And the program you were talking about, I want to make sure we mention it, for men having babies is called GPAP, right? The Gay Parenting Assistance Program.
Right.
And we'll be sure to link that in this episode for those who might want to learn more about that, because it is a great program for sure.
Yeah, there aren't many programs like it. In fact, I don't know of any other in the U.S. And a couple of weeks ago, I held a fundraiser at my home to generate funds for the GPAP program. It was very successful because I invited a lot of former patients who have had babies and now want to do something to give back to the community. And so we were able to generate funds to help fund the GPAP program.
I love that. Yes, I know you hold that fundraiser every year, and every year I miss it. So maybe next year I'll make it.
It was a very nice evening. You have to come next time.
I love it. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and it always feels like we have so much more to talk about, but I think we covered some great ground here. And just thank you for everything you've done in our field and continue to do. And thanks for your time today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
It was fun.
It's important to share these stories as we both said.
Absolutely. We'll be sure to link to Dr. Ringler's clinic so you can learn more about him and all the great work they do at California Fertility Partners. So that brings us to the end of this episode of the Normalized Surrogacy podcast. Again, I want to thank Dr. Ringler for his time in joining me today. Be sure to check us out online at surrogacymentor.com. If you're interested in knowing whether surrogacy is right for you, take our easy 2-minute quiz on our website. Also, check out modernparentmentor.com if you are considering an independent surrogacy journey as a surrogate or intended parent. Subscribe to this podcast to learn more about gestational surrogacy